Boston recently received $9.8 million from the federal government. Funding will support the Greater Boston Climate and Coastal Resilience Workforce Alliance that will train and place Boston residents into over 1,200 jobs that enhance the city's climate and coastal resilience.
We're creating a solar system. We will be putting up some panels. We're going to set them up in a series parallel. We're trying to make sure that everything operates together.
Stephen St. Julien and his classmates are training to become solar technicians, workers who set up, maintain, and repair solar panels. The state of Massachusetts has set a goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. The Massachusetts Clean Energy Center reports that in order to meet that goal, an additional 38,000 clean energy workers are needed by the end of the decade. That's an estimated growth of 37%. The Solar Helping Ignite Neighborhood Economies, or SHINE Coalition, is part of that growth equation. RARE, an international conservation organization, joined forces with Community Action Agency ABCD to launch the job training program in 2023. Ron Marlowe is the Vice President of Workforce Development and Alternative Education for ABCD.
RARE was very interested in not only bringing community-based solar to the community, but hey, there are individuals who live in these impacted communities for whom employment opportunities should be made available.
People of color in city neighborhoods have been impacted by climate change, particularly when it comes to extreme heat, but have been underrepresented in the green economy.
When you talk about low-income individuals who typically have lower skills, or people of color who may have lower skills, they tend to gravitate to occupations either when, that occupational playing field is level or declining. In this program, we have an opportunity to get people in while it's at its nascent phases and growing and expected to grow over the next decade. So we're bringing opportunity to people at a time when they can really take advantage of it and really chart a career path for themselves and their families.
In addition to the job skills, students like Youssef Salaki also want to be part of changing their neighbors' mindset about accessing solar energy.
We learn a lot of stuff, how to talk to customers and see how much, they depending on the budget, or how much if they want to reduce the bill like to zero, or they want to reduce it 50%, depends, just 25%. And based on that, we do some calculations. We know how many solar panels can be mounted in their roofs.
Instructor Carlos Atunes was trained in a similar program and decided that he could relate to students with a similar background in a very unique way.
If I can teach differently, they can learn differently and hopefully get everything out of it. They bring a lot. They bring diversity, right? Different personalities. We got different backgrounds, Moroccan, West African, African Americans. But when they're here, they work as a team, because certain communities that we come from, it's not a lot of unity, right? But when we bunch them up here from all different walks and get them working as a team, problem solving, all that stuff, it's a beautiful thing.
A beautiful thing. Ensuring communities of color are included and benefit from the climate-driven economy is a priority of Bridges to Green Jobs. Now there's a new partnership between Dorchester Bay Economic Development Corporation and Local Initiatives Support Corporation, known as LISC, Massachusetts, is expanding a low-barrier career pathway into the job sector, the green job sector. Joining us now is Gustavo Quiroga, Executive Director of Local Initiative Support Corporation, Massachusetts, known as LISC, and Silvana Bastante Munoz, Program Officer, Green Jobs and Income and Wealth Building. Welcome to you both. How are you today?
Thank you.
Great.
So, Silvana, let's start with you. Tell us about what the Bridges Green Jobs training is all about.
Yeah, definitely. So the Bridges to Green Jobs is a 2-week technical and soft skills training that prepares residents for entry-level roles in clean energy or the climate economy, as you'll probably hear. And we're just really excited that, over the past 3 years, we've been able to perfect the model to now have such a robust training to offer residents, primarily through financial coaching. We have a career navigation component, and probably the proudest piece of this that we've implemented is our transitional coaching piece, and that's when they're working with a social worker to kind of navigate new and existing challenges of job transitions, as well as just mitigating those job retention barriers that we've seen over the years.
So, Gustavo, this is a well-established program. It has a great track record of success. Why have you expanded to this partnership with the Dorchester Bay Economic Development Corporation?
Well, for us at LISC Massachusetts, we are focused on 3 of the most pressing challenges we face as a Commonwealth. It's building affordable housing, it's closing the racial wealth gap to build a more equitable economy for all, and it's preparing communities for climate change. And that includes helping owners of affordable housing make their properties green, but we also know that we need a robust workforce in order to achieve those goals. And we want to make sure that there are equitable on-ramps to the climate economy for communities that have historically been marginalized and haven't had an opportunity to access all of the amazing economic waves of innovation that have happened here in Massachusetts. This is the next one, and we want to make sure that those communities are part of it. And so our partnership with Dorchester Bay, and what we're very excited is our 6th Bridges to Green Job cohort in the past few years. Dorchester Bay is a longtime community leader in workforce development, small business training, and they're going to help us on the ground connect and reach to those community residents that we want to work with,
So
and
it's a
that's
good
so
fit.
important.
It's a good
great
fit. So let's look at some of the statistics from your previous cohorts. Bridges to Green Jobs statistics include 97% of graduates complete the program, 86% of graduates have interviews by week 3, 76% of graduates obtain jobs, $850 is the average weekly starting pay. Gustavo, what are these jobs, and is there a potential to grow in these positions?
Well, that's a really important point, because the jobs that we're training for are entry-level jobs. They're weatherization technicians. So many of us are familiar with the Mass Save incentive program. That's, when you have a crew come to your house to blow insulation in your attic. The jobs that we're training for are the folks who are going to come and do that work. It's hard work, no doubt. And those jobs typically start paying at the lower end of a living wage scale. What we've done is, with our wraparound services, is also provide a living wage stipend that kind of bridges the gap there and ensures that people see that there's real dollars coming into their paycheck in advance of what is typically a pretty quick increase in pay over time and promotion as well. And we've seen a lot of our graduates who have gone on to become crew chiefs, who are working towards starting their own business. And it's just an entry point, I should say, into the climate economy.
But you have to have an entry-level position, get the experience so you can move up. So you got to start somewhere, right? So, Silvana, what supports do you provide so that the participants can keep these jobs and also help them advance?
Yeah, and I realized I got ahead of myself because I was very excited to talk about them. But yeah, so like I had started mentioning, we offer financial coaching, we offer career navigation, so that, because the jobs are hard, we want folks to know, what else there is out there after maybe 6 months or a year in the field. And then the transitional coaching piece. So they're working with the transitional coaches who are social workers for the first 3 months that they're in the field, and they have the access to the living wage stipend for the first 6 months, which we've seen, just remarkable changes and supports in job retention.
What are the requirements to participate in the program?
So it's 18 and over. It's definitely have to be 18 and over, and then have to have a valid driver's license and reliable transportation and work authorization. Okay, so Gustavo, the next group starts on February 3rd. How do you apply to participate?
You just come to our website. It's lisc.org/greenjobs. and all the information is there. Even if you submit your application, maybe you can't make it, stay on that list because we're constantly sending out information about other resources, other opportunities, and there'll be another cohort soon, and we'll hopefully be able to get folks signed up then.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we're going to have the link to the Bridges to Green Jobs program on our website. Gustavo Quiroga and Silvana Bastante Munoz, thank you for joining us.